silent question. Yes, I am proud to be America's first straight female president.
The world doesn't rely on Springfield's finest for hard and fast predictions. For over 3 decades, The Simpsons has been entertaining us with its quirky humor, wild storylines, and uncanny ability to predict the future. Well, sometimes, but how accurate have those predictions really been? While they've nailed a few, many of their forecasts have completely missed the mark, like their blunder on the now successful laser technology. Curious to see which other ones went awfully wrong. Join us as we take a look at the top 20 predictions by The Simpsons that went horribly wrong. Number 20, Kamalas Presidency. It's become a bit of a sport to track The Simpsons and their almost uncanny knack for predicting world events. But after Kamala Harris lost her 2024 presidential bid, fans and skeptics alike are re-evaluating the show's forecasting abilities. For years, people marveled at how the show seemed to pull real-life events from thin air, like accurately predicting Donald Trump's rise to the White House. But in this case, their fictional future is decidedly off-script. In the classic 2000 episode, Bart to the Future, Bart gets a flash-forward glimpse of his adult years, and we see Lisa stepping up as America's first female president. She's even picking up after Trump's budgetary mess, an odd detail that felt almost too real when Trump later took office. Then, in a 2021 episode, the show gave fans another peek at Lisa's presidential future, and some couldn't help but notice her outfit resembled the iconic purple suit Harris wore to the 2021 inauguration. It seemed to hint that Harris might follow in those animated footsteps. Fast forward to 2024. The outcome didn't match the cartoon's storyline, and social media quickly called The Simpsons out. Fans expressed disappointment that the show's eerily prophetic streak had faltered. Sure, the world doesn't rely on Springfield's finest for hard and fast predictions, but there was something fun in believing they could. With Trump winning again, the internet is buzzing that maybe The Simpsons have finally lost their forecasting magic. Or who knows, maybe they're just off by a few years, and Lisa's moment in the Oval Office is still out there in the future somewhere. Only time will tell. But if The Simpsons has taught us anything, it's that time has a funny way of bending to its own rules, and sometimes even the wildest predictions don't pan out quite as expected. With that in mind, let's take a look back to 1995, when they imagined a digital twist on Big Ben that, as you'll see, never quite made it to reality. Number 19. Digital Big Ben. In the 1995 episode Lisa's Wedding, a college-aged Lisa heads to London to meet her fiancé's family. In true Simpsons style, the cityscape includes a version of Big Ben that's been modernized into a massive digital clock, a jarring twist on London's beloved landmark. In reality, though, Big Ben hasn't budged from its traditional analog roots. Despite the many advancements in tech over the years, Londoners and tourists alike still look up to see that iconic clock face marking the time. Interestingly, it's not actually Big Ben that you're looking at. Big Ben is the nickname for the Great Bell within. The tower itself, known for most of its life simply as the Clock Tower, was renamed Elizabeth Tower in 2012 to honor the late Queen Elizabeth II's Diamond Jubilee. So why hasn't Big Ben gone digital? Tradition is a huge factor. Big Ben is a symbol of history, logically, one that feels as iconic as the Tower of London or Buckingham Palace. Replacing that timeless clock face with digital numbers would almost feel sacrilegious to many Britons, like putting neon signs on a medieval cathedral. Still, you have to give The Simpsons points for creativity. Predicting that London would adopt a digital display for Big Ben might have seemed totally realistic in the 90s. But some things are just too classic to change, even in a world that's always speeding ahead. So for now, and likely forever, the old-school tick-tock of Big Ben will continue marking time in grand analog style. While Big Ben's classic clock face reminds us that some traditions are simply too iconic to alter, The Simpsons doesn't hold back in imagining futuristic risks. Next, we dive into a scene where Bart encounters a rather unfortunate twist on modern tech, one that left Ned Flanders regretting his choice to follow a fleeting trend. Number 18. Ned Flanders Regret. In a futuristic Simpsons episode, Bart and his quirky roommate Ralph Wiggum pay a visit to an older, visually impaired Ned Flanders. When they ask what happened, Flanders explains his misfortune. He'd gone for laser eye surgery years before. With a remorseful sigh, he admits, "I never should have had that trendy laser surgery. It was great at first, but at the 10-year mark, your eyes fall out." Classic Simpsons dark humor at its finest, this scene pokes fun at the doubts about trendy medical procedures. Laser eye surgery has come a long way since its beginnings in the late 80s, and by the time LASIK hit the mainstream in 1999, the technology had become significantly safer. But Flanders' horror story plays to our worst fears about modern advancements, especially when they're new or hyped up. Of course, while the thought of one's eyes just up and falling out might sound terrifying, it's firmly in the world of cartoon absurdity. In real life, laser eye surgery has a solid safety record and doesn't come with the expiration date Flanders fears. As Bart and Ralph leave Flanders to his own regrets about trendy medical fads, The Simpsons shifts gears to another of Bart's encounters, this time in a high-stakes, tiger-filled puzzle. Number 17. Adrienne's Revenge. One of the funnier moments in The Simpsons sees Bart locked in a room with doors numbered in Roman numerals, each door hiding a deadly tiger, except one. The only way out is for him to find the seventh door, so Bart channels his inner math whiz, remembering the Roman numerals from the Rocky movies. He hilariously adds Rocky V and Rocky II, coming up with Rocky VII. Adrienne's Revenge. It's Bart's ultimate pop culture equation. 5 + 2 = 7. Problem solved. At the time, there wasn't actually a seventh Rocky movie, so the joke landed perfectly, poking a bit of fun at the idea of endlessly sequeling everything, even for Rocky. The Simpsons didn't just joke about another installment, though. They imagined one with a twist, where Adrienne, Rocky's ever-supportive wife, would somehow come back with a vengeance. The idea of a wronged Adrienne turning into a boxing powerhouse is absurdly funny and feels like exactly the kind of zany plot twist only The Simpsons could dream up. Then, fast forward years later, Rocky gets a seventh installment after all. When Creed arrived, it continued the Rocky legacy, with Michael B. Jordan stepping into the ring as the lead and a retired Rocky in his corner. But Creed was no revenge tale, and there was no Adrienne out for blood. The Simpsons may have foreseen the franchise's endurance, but they couldn't have predicted this heartfelt evolution of the story. So, Bart's prediction went hilariously wrong. As the Rocky series shifted into something completely new, Bart's Rocky-inspired math may have been hilariously off-target, but it's not the only time The Simpsons took a wild stab at the future. Speaking of predictions gone wrong, remember when they imagined "Smell You Later" as the new goodbye? Number 16. Smell You Later. Remember that classic Simpsons moment when they predicted a world where Bart was a burnout living with Ralph and Lisa was the president? Sounds wild, right? But what really caught attention was their prediction that "Smell You Later" would become the go-to farewell replacing goodbye entirely. In the episode, when the mailman stops by to deliver some mail, Bart and Ralph casually toss out a "smell you later," like it's the most natural thing in the world. Now let's talk about how that prediction totally flopped. We've all heard the phrase, but let's be real. Did "smell you later" ever truly catch on? It's hardly even a common insult anymore, let alone a standard goodbye. If anything, it's more likely to show up as a joke or a retro catchphrase, something you say ironically to give people a good chuckle. Instead of becoming the replacement for goodbye, it's pretty much just a relic of early 90s humor. It's one of those predictions that seemed hilarious and totally possible at the time, but now it's clear "smell you later" never had the staying power they imagined. People still say goodbye in all its variations, and we're still waiting for that future where the phrase becomes a staple in every conversation. While "smell you later" missed the mark as the next big farewell, The Simpsons took an even bolder leap when predicting the future of TV content. And if you thought a casual greeting change was wild, wait until you hear what they imagined for Fox's lineup. Number 15. The Fox Prediction. In a Simpsons episode, Homer and Marge watch TV in the future and joke, "Fox turned into a hardcore sex channel so gradually I didn't even notice." Well, Fox hasn't exactly gone the route of mainstream porn. While the network airs reality TV and adult cartoons like Family Guy, Bob's Burgers, and The Simpsons, it hasn't turned into an all-hours sex channel. The prediction, though humorous, missed the mark. Instead of a full shift to explicit content, Fox has focused on its usual mix of drama, reality shows, and the occasional edgy animated series like Family Guy and American Dad. Sure, the lines have blurred a bit with how TV content has evolved thanks to streaming services, but Fox still avoids the extreme levels of adult material that The Simpsons hinted at. While Fox didn't dive into the explicit future that Homer predicted, another Simpsons prediction involving celebrities took a darker, almost chilling turn. It seems The Simpsons took their shot at foreseeing the fates of the rich and famous, but as you'll see, not all of their targets met the same destiny. Number 14. George Clooney's death. Another Simpson prediction that has now gone horribly wrong involves none other than George Clooney. In the 19th annual Treehouse of Horror special, Homer Simpson gets a rather bizarre job. He's hired by an agency to kill off celebrities to use their likenesses in product placements. In a quick montage, Homer gets rid of several stars, including Clooney, Prince, and astronaut Neil Armstrong. Fast forward a few years, and tragically, both Prince and Neil Armstrong passed away, just like the show predicted. But here's the kicker. George Clooney is still very much alive. In fact, The Simpsons didn't stop there with the Clooney predictions. For the 25th Treehouse of Horror special, the show took it even further by featuring a chopped-up version of Clooney's body in the opening title card, alongside other celebrities like Taylor Swift and Jennifer Lawrence. Yet, as the years roll on, Clooney continues to thrive in both his career and personal life. While Clooney has dodged The Simpsons' dark predictions, other forecasts about the future, particularly when it comes to technology, haven't been so lucky. And nowhere is this more evident than in the show's bold yet unrealized vision of a world filled with hover vehicles. Number 13. Hover vehicles. In The Simpsons, the future often looks like a mix of chaos and innovation, with technology pushing the boundaries of imagination. One prediction that didn't quite land was the introduction of hover vehicles, which appeared in the 25th episode, Future Drama. In the episode, Homer is seen cruising around in a hover car in the year 2013, a time that, back in 2005, seemed like the far-off future. Fast forward to today, and while we've seen some futuristic tech predictions come true, think smartwatches and FaceTime, hovercars are still nowhere to be found, except in China, where they have something that comes a bit close but is still more of a drone than a flying car. Despite the technological leaps we've made, hover vehicles remain more of a sci-fi dream than a reality. We're still wrestling with challenges like making electric cars more mainstream and developing self-driving vehicles without major glitches. So, The Simpsons got a little ahead of themselves here, with their 2013 prediction feeling more like a wild guess than a spot-on forecast. The fact that hovertech was introduced in 2013 is probably a sign that the show's writers were a bit too ambitious. Maybe 2113 would have been a better bet, giving us more time to get the hovercar off the ground. While The Simpsons may have missed the mark with their hovercar prediction, they've also ventured into some hilariously misguided celebrity forecasts. One such instance involved a psychic's baffling prediction about a famous couple, only to be completely wrong in the most unexpected way. Number 12. Delta Burke split. In a wild twist, The Simpsons threw out a prediction that was way off the mark. In an episode where Principal Skinner goes missing, Chief Wiggum seeks answers from a psychic, hoping for some clues. While the psychic's visions couldn't help him find Skinner, who's just stuck in his garage, she did make a bizarre prediction. I'm afraid it's Splitsville for Delta Burke and Major Dad. Wiggum, clearly bummed out about the breakup of the beloved celebrity couple, responds with, "But they seemed so happy." Well, it turns out the psychic was way off. Delta Burke and Gerald McRaney, the real-life couple behind the characters, not only didn't break up, but they've been happily married for 33 years. While The Simpsons have certainly had their fair share of offbeat predictions, their track record with sports forecasts has been nothing short of uncanny. Yet, despite nailing several Super Bowl outcomes, there was one prediction that missed the mark in a big way. Number 11. NFL prediction fail. Back in the early 90s, The Simpsons nailed a Super Bowl prediction, correctly forecasting that the Washington Redskins would beat the Buffalo Bills. The following year, they did it again, this time predicting a Dallas Cowboys win after rerunning the same episode with the Redskins swapped out. And it wasn't just a one-off. This streak kept going for a couple of years, with the show even calling the Falcons versus Patriots Super Bowl matchup right. But there's one prediction that really didn't go as planned. In an episode, Homer is watching TV, and the game shown is between the Denver Broncos and the Seattle Seahawks, spot on for Super Bowl 48. However, the outcome was way off. The Broncos, predicted to win, got steamrolled by the Seahawks, who dominated with a 43-8 victory, despite their top-ranked defense. So while the matchup was a good call, the actual game outcome completely derailed their perfect streak. The Simpsons no doubt had a solid track record predicting Super Bowl outcomes, but not all their future forecasts hit the mark. One such example offers a chilling, and rather outdated, vision of technology's role in society, one that feels eerily wrong today. Number 10. iPods and Dystopia. In Ice Cream of Margie with the light blue hair, The Simpsons offered a chilling glimpse into the future that didn't exactly pan out the way they predicted. The episode shows Marge getting into sculpting with popsicle sticks, and when Homer destroys all her work, she builds a giant sculpture of him to show her forgiveness. 200 years later, the Homer sculpture is the only piece of Western art left. But here's where things go wrong. Those giant iPods, which were a quirky sci-fi joke at the time, are now the terrifying rulers of humanity. These iPods, equipped with giant headphones, enslave people, whipping them into submission. This bizarre vision of the future was one of the show's typical exaggerations of technology gone awry, but it's particularly striking because of how wrong it feels in retrospect. The iPods were meant to be this symbol of future tech's overwhelming power, but instead, they feel like an outdated relic. At the time of airing, iPods were cutting edge, but by the time 200 years later rolled around in the show, they were a symbol of dystopia. Ironically, the tech that was once so revolutionary has been outpaced by smarter, sleeker gadgets. The future in the episode imagines humans being oppressed by technology in the form of bulky, outdated iPods, but now, devices like smartphones and AI are part of our everyday lives rather than oppressing us. While the show often nails humorous or absurd predictions, this one feels particularly far from reality. In a time when tech advancements focus more on convenience than domination, the vision of iPods as tyrannical overlords seems wildly off the mark. While Marge's futuristic art piece symbolizes how outdated technology can seem ridiculous in hindsight, Treehouse of Horror 27 takes a darker turn, plunging Springfield into an apocalyptic nightmare triggered by human error and greed. Instead of quirky sci-fi missteps, this episode hits close to home with its chilling reminder of the catastrophic risks of ignoring safety for profit. Number 9. Failed Apocalypse. In Treehouse of Horror 27, The Simpsons dives into a wild, post-apocalyptic Springfield, where a nuclear disaster has turned the world into a chaotic wasteland. Mixing Mad Max with a bit of the Hunger Games, the episode shows Springfield falling apart because of, no surprise here, Mr. Burns. In typical fashion, he ignores safety rules at the nuclear plant, which leads to the whole disaster. Despite the episode's wild exaggeration, there's an oddly real message buried under the chaos. Mr. Burns, focused only on profit, skips necessary precautions, putting everyone at risk. This reflects the way some big corporations cut corners for profit, ignoring long-term consequences on people and the planet. It's almost eerie how The Simpsons taps into this issue, pointing out the dangers of ignoring safety and the environment for the sake of a quick buck. As Springfield descends into madness, Lisa takes charge, trying to lead her town out of the mess. This part of the episode, while funny, also nods to today's young activists. Just like Lisa, many young people are speaking up about the need to protect our resources and calling for change as they inherit a world burdened by past mistakes. While meant to be ridiculous, the episode hits close to home, reminding us of the real effects that come from ignoring safety and environmental care. It's no wonder some fans find truth in the joke. The nuclear disaster might be extreme, but it mirrors real concerns about what can happen if people in power don't act responsibly. With Lisa fighting for a better future in a world gone mad, we're reminded that even the brightest minds can get it hilariously wrong. Now, let's move on to Professor Frink's bold predictions about computers that couldn't have missed the mark more. Number 8. Professor Frink's computer prediction. Professor Frink, Springfield's resident genius, had some ambitious predictions of computers. Back in the day, he confidently declared, within 10 years, computers will be twice as powerful, 10,000 times larger, and so expensive that only the 5 richest kings of Europe will own them. Sounds pretty dramatic, right? While he was spot on about computers becoming more powerful, Frink completely missed the mark on a couple of major points. Instead of becoming gigantic, as he envisioned, computers shrank down to the size of what we now call laptops, tablets, and smartphones. Far from filling entire rooms, we now have tech that fits in our pockets. What about that expensive part? It turns out you don't need to be royalty to get your hands on a computer anymore. Today, a laptop or smartphone is accessible to most people, and prices have dropped so much that even the average consumer can afford advanced tech. Frink's prediction that only the 5 richest kings of Europe could own a computer is hilariously outdated in the world of affordable technology we live in today. It's a perfect example of how even the smartest minds can sometimes get things wrong about the future. As for Professor Frink, he may have been ahead of his time in some ways, but when it comes to tech predictions, he didn't exactly see the future clearly. Number 7. The World War III prediction. In a twist that's left many scratching their heads, The Simpsons predicted a very questionable take on World War III. In an episode where Lisa's fiancé Hugh meets the family, Homer decides to take him out for a drink at Moe's Tavern. Moe, in his usual blunt fashion, jokes, "An English boy, eh? You know, we saved your ass in World War II." Not missing a beat, Hugh fires back, "Yeah, well, we saved your ass in World War III." Now, this exchange might have seemed like a harmless jab at the time, but here's where things get eerie. The episode aired back in 1997, and to this day, World War III is a conflict we've thankfully avoided. Still, that off-the-cuff remark about the war hasn't aged so well, with many wondering what it might mean for the future. If the global chaos Moe hints at actually happens, which country would come out on top, and who would save who? The possibilities seem endless and pretty scary. Given that we've seen tensions rise globally, it's hard not to feel like The Simpsons had a strange sense of forewarning. Yet, despite all the absurdity the show has managed to predict, it's safe to say no one's hoping to live out the kind of World War III scenario that Hugh casually referenced. While The Simpsons might have hinted at an ominous global conflict, they also dared to dream of everyday citizens, like Homer, venturing into the cosmos. So just as World War III remains a troubling prediction, Homer's space escapade remains an inspiring one, and it raises the question, how close are we to seeing such an unlikely journey actually come true? Number 6. Homer Simpson's space trip. The Simpsons episode Deep Space Homer set an unforgettable scene with Homer Simpson bumbling his way through outer space, crunching on floating potato chips in zero gravity. The plot hinges on NASA's decision to pick an average Joe, our beloved Homer, as part of a new program to boost public interest in space exploration. Sounds fun, right? Homer gets his space adventure, drifts around the shuttle, and has his chaotic but entertaining moment in the stars. Reality, though, tells a different story. While the episode gave fans a hopeful, humorous glimpse of an everyday citizen soaring through the cosmos, that dream took a leap closer to reality in 2021, when Jeff Bezos, founder of Amazon, became one of the first private citizens to travel to space on a rocket built by his own company, Blue Origin. The mission wasn't just a milestone for Bezos. It marked a new chapter in space exploration, shifting the possibilities for space tourism from science fiction to achievable reality. On board the New Shepard rocket, Bezos and a small crew soared over 60 miles above Earth, experiencing a few precious moments of weightlessness before descending safely back. And NASA itself hasn't quite taken a page out of The Simpsons book to launch everyday citizens into space. Some companies are edging closer to this dream with budding space tourism programs like Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin. The closest brush we had with everyday space travel came in 2002 with NSYNC star Lance Bass, who trained rigorously with Russia for a potential mission. Bas was set to become the first pop star to rocket into space, but in the end, his mission was scrapped due to funding issues. And while Homer's space dreams were grounded, The Simpsons' quirky predictions didn't stop there. From hinting at new states to offbeat future scenarios, the show's strange foresight has given us plenty to wonder about, like the unexpected arrival of a so-called 51st state. Number 5. A 51st state. One standout is the show's claim about a 51st state. The future drama episode casually referenced a fictional new state, Saudi Arabia, supposedly added by 2013. Yet, the US still stands at a neat 50 states, and while Puerto Rico has had ongoing discussions about statehood, nothing concrete has materialized. Saudi Arabia remains just a quirky name and concept from The Simpsons, far removed from any real debate on US expansion. The Simpsons' idea of a new US state might just remain a quirky fantasy after all. Now let's look at how its playful predictions about technology may have captured glimpses of a world we're inching towards, even if some seem straight out of science fiction. Number 4. Tech gone too far. In The Simpsons, robots and futuristic tech often steal the spotlight, thanks to characters like Lisa Simpson and Professor Frink. While most of the gadgetry is used for laughs, some predictions have aimed for a look at the future. In the future drama episode, the show's creators offered a vision of 2013 that didn't quite play out as expected. Take the scene where Marge uses a Polaroid camera, only to transfer the photo into a cake instantly. It's straight out of Back to the Future 2, where a pizza magically appears. While we're still waiting for such food tech to become a reality, an Easy Mac doesn't really compare. The episode also featured a postcard that displayed moving images, almost like a primitive version of Instagram, but using hologram paper instead of smartphones. It was cool, but holograms in everyday life are still a bit of a stretch. And then there were the RoboCops, fully armored and machine-enhanced. Sure, law enforcement has adopted body cams, but robotic officers are still something out of a sci-fi movie. While The Simpsons may have overestimated our tech-savvy future with robots on patrol, their satirical take on Apple's influence dives even deeper into the surreal. Number 3. Apple and the Afterlife. In an episode of The Simpsons called $1 Million AB, the show took aim at Apple with a darkly humorous prediction that was way off the mark. The episode introduced the Dipop, a parody device meant to assist with medical-assisted suicide, complete with pre-loaded music for the occasion. It was a satirical look at Apple's potential involvement in death care, something Apple would likely never touch in real life. While the company does have a history of taking on heavy topics in a humorous way, this particular prediction missed the mark entirely. Interestingly, the idea of a device for the dying is now a reality, like the 3D printed suicide capsule form Nitschke and the more modern suicide pods. The Simpsons also did hit a nerve with some of its other Apple spoofs. The show often imagines the future of Apple products, and in this case, the Dipop fits into a long tradition of futuristic devices, from text-to-speech systems to a mock genius bar. Apple's actual innovations, while groundbreaking, have never ventured into territory quite as morbid as what the show suggested. Another Apple-related moment on The Simpsons featured the I-ghosted device, which seemed like it would allow communication with the dead. Again, a far-fetched idea, but it certainly added to the show's playful critique of the tech giant's potential to dominate every aspect of life. In reality, Apple's real connection to death seems more related to the never-ending cycle of product upgrades, as older devices mysteriously lose their charge and performance, nudging users toward newer models. While The Simpsons' portrayal of Apple delved into exaggerated possibilities for our digital age, their bold imagination doesn't stop there. In another episode, they turned their attention to space exploration, envisioning Springfield's citizens embarking on a journey to Mars. Number 2. Mars colonization. In the episode The Margian Chronicles, The Simpsons imagined a future where the residents of Springfield get to participate in a human colonization mission to Mars. It's a classic sci-fi parody, but within the quirky universe of the show, the idea of sending people to Mars felt oddly realistic. Of course, things didn't stay grounded in reality. The Simpsons universe is notorious for having stakes that reset every time the credits roll. And while NASA remains at the forefront of efforts aimed at colonizing Mars through its sending of rovers to the Red Planet, Elon Musk is also making impressive strides through his company, SpaceX. Driven by his belief that humanity must become a multiplanetary species, Musk aims to establish a sustainable settlement on Mars to safeguard against potential existential threats on Earth. SpaceX is now actively developing reusable Starship spacecraft, designed to carry large numbers of passengers and cargo across interplanetary distances. With all of these ongoing endeavors, we might just be edging closer to having the first set of humans on the Red Planet. The Simpsons' Mars mission episode clearly offered a light-hearted take on space colonization. Their knack for blending bizarre plots with eerie hints of reality didn't stop there. In fact, one of their most outlandish storylines, a massive dome trapping Springfield, nearly mirrored a famous novel's plot, though this time it missed the mark on becoming reality. Number 1. The Dome Disaster. The Simpsons movie had a concept that was both strange and oddly familiar. Springfield trapped under a massive dome. Sure, it made for an interesting plot in the movie, but in hindsight, it's hard not to see it as a failed prediction. The plot of the movie, which released in 2007, closely mirrored the premise of Stephen King's Under the Dome, a novel that didn't make its TV debut until a few years later. In a world where predictions about technology, politics, and even the future of society seem to come up a little too accurately from The Simpsons, the idea of a dome encapsulating a town should have been one of those nailed-it moments. Instead, it's more of a miss, especially when you consider how unlikely it is that such an event would ever actually unfold. But then, when you look at Israel's Iron Dome, it's clear that dome technology is very real and incredibly effective. While it's not sealing off towns, the Iron Dome has been vital for defending cities against incoming missile threats, intercepting up to 90% of rockets in some conflicts. Unlike Springfield's fictional dome, the Iron Dome isn't for containment, but for survival. And with its radar-guided technology, it's a cutting-edge shield that feels straight out of sci-fi, yet it exists today as one of the most sophisticated defense systems on the planet. So, while we haven't seen massive domes trapping cities, the Iron Dome shows that defensive domes aren't just fiction. If The Simpsons were to try again with a sequel, they might look to the Iron Dome for inspiration, though perhaps with a lighter take on this serious and incredible tech. Considering how many of The Simpsons' wild predictions have missed the mark, are the few that actually came true just lucky coincidences? Let us know your opinion in the comments below.